Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the July 21st, 2022 meeting of the Maricopa County Planning Commission. I'd like to call this meeting to order. If we could have roll call, please.
Chairman Lindblom.
Here.
Vice Chair Slasher.
Here.
Commissioner Arnett.
Here.
Commissioner Swart.
Here.
Commissioner Lawrence. Commissioner McGee.
Here.
Commissioner Hernandez.
Here.
Commissioner Montoya. Commissioner Dan Zeisen. Chairman, we do have a quorum.
All right, thank you very much. Again, welcome, everybody. First, for the announcements. This meeting has been noticed in accordance with Open Meeting Law ARS 38-431. Agendas are available within 24 hours of each meeting in the Maricopa County Planning and Development Office, and are also available on the Planning and Development website 1 week prior to hearing at www.maricopa.gov/planning. The staff reports prepared for each agenda item shall become a part of the permanent record for each case. With respect to the hearing process, cases will be considered in the order they appear on the agenda unless otherwise agreed to by the commission. For each case, the applicant will be given a set amount of time to present. Anyone wishing to speak on a particular case shall fill out a speaker's card for in-person attendance or raise your hand within the GoToWebinar. The amount of time allowed for speaking shall be at the discretion of the commission chair. Staff will provide the chairman with the names of persons who have registered and noted desire to comment, and those registered participants who have raised their hand. The chairman will call on each named participant one at a time. The chairman will conduct the hybrid in-person virtual public hearing according to the bylaws and according to the rules established by the chairman regarding public comment. Votes will be done by roll call vote only. The chairman will verbally identify the specific members responsible for all motions and seconds. With that, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Can you please present the 4 items on consent, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, there are 4 items. They are Z 2022-053, known as US 60 and Country Club Drive in District 2. This is to amend the C3 CUPD zoning to permit a maximum billboard height of 70 feet for a 1.2 acre site at the southeast corner of US 60 and Country Club Drive in Mesa. There's no opposition. The recommendation in paragraph 10 is for approval, subject to conditions A through L. Z 2022-066, known as CCO I-10 in Chandler in District 1, is a special use permit to permit digital conversion of a legal non-conforming billboard. It's legal non-conforming due to a 507-foot separation from another billboard. The site is a half acre, northeast corner of I-10 and Pecos Road. There's no known opposition. The recommendations for approval in paragraph 11, subject to conditions A through G. Z 2022-076, known as 202 and Higley Digital Billboard in District 1, is a C2 CUPD zoning to accommodate the minimum lot area for a 1/10 of an acre site east of the northeast corner of Higley Road and Loop 202. There's no known opposition. The recommendation in paragraph 19 is for approval, subject to conditions A through F. And then finally, Z 2022-122, known as the Gross Voluntary Rezone in District 1. This is a request for commission initiation of a rezone to from R135 REPD to Rule 43 REPD. This is an opt-in to the Chandler Heights Rule 43 REPD zoning district originally approved under Z 2005-006 for a 1.10 acre site at 18820 East Lawndale Place. There's no known opposition. The recommendation is to initiate this rezoning and then recommend approval to the board, subject to condition A, which simply references the stipulations of previous case Z 2005-006. That concludes the consent agenda. Happy to try and answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Darren. Are there any questions or comments from the commission on the consent item? Hearing none, is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak on the consent items? Seeing none. David, is there anybody on webinar wishing to speak, raising their hand?
Yeah, we're not aware of any speakers from the public.
All right, thank you. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion for approval.
I'll second Commissioner Swart.
Okay. I have a motion approved from Commissioner Swart and a second from Commissioner Hernandez. Could I have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner McGee,
Yes.
Commissioner Swart,
Yes.
Commissioner Arnett,
Yes.
Commissioner Hernandez,
Yes.
Vice Chair Slasher,
Yes.
Chairman Limblom,
yes,
Chairman, that's an approval by a vote of 6-0.
All right, thank you very much. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to the regular agenda, item number 4, case CPA 2021-009, Santa Barbara Ranch.
Yes.
Staff could please present.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, this case was remanded back to the Planning and Zoning Commission from the board on May 8th to District 4. It's a major comprehensive plan amendment covering 1,003 acres north of US 60 in the Morristown area. It is to change the land use designation from rural uses to single-family transitional lot and commercial land uses. It is in the Surprise area, and in the city's general plan, it's designated for neighborhood, open space, commerce, and office character areas. The city supports this request and has made comment that they intend to annex and are willing to enter into an agreement for services prior to annexation that removes all of staff's chief concerns. There is opposition from the public. There's 66 documents of opposition received to date, including a petition with 163 signatures. However, the recommendation is for approval in paragraph 17, subject to conditions A through D. I'll try and answer any questions you may have, and the applicant is also present.
All right, thank you, Darren. Are there any questions at this point of staff from the commission? Hearing none, if the applicant would like to give his presentation, please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Bill Lally, Tiffany Bosco, 2525 East Calvac Road, here for the applicant. We do have a presentation. I don't know if there's a clicker we can go to, a couple slides. It's worth, Mr. Vice Chair, members, giving you a little bit of the background and history of where this case came from. Give it a moment to see if she's going to run it from there. Okay, yeah, I'll have you just leave it there for a moment, or maybe go back one more. Perfect. Okay, so the history was, this is a major general plan and comp plan amendment that was before you of November of last year. At that time, admittedly, we did have a number of unresolved issues related to access, sewer, water, police, fire, a lot of big picture issues that at the time we were working on in our companion zoning case. The companion zoning case was not before you at the time. It was just being submitted. And in fact, we were going through a lot of work with the city of Surprise to understand what their capabilities are for servicing of the area. And so if we could go to the next slide, it'll give you an understanding of some of the concerns that were raised at your hearing last year. I know it was a limited hearing, limited number of folks attended, but there were a couple issues that the city of Surprise asked us to take a look at outside of the utilities, which was to adhere to sort of their open space requirements, adhere to commercial support uses. Now, the application at the time was just one big change of color from small or large lot residential to medium residential. There was no commercial components added to it. We then worked with staff over the intervening months to get the zoning case submitted and begin a dialogue on how we would locate the commercial nodes within the development. The other issues really were, how are you going to serve? There was a lot of question marks about, is this ripe for development? Is this too far out? Is this leapfrog development? You don't have services. In that time from November to when the Board of Supervisors heard this case in May of this year, we worked with City of Surprise diligently, had probably half a dozen meetings where we discussed all of these issues. Specifically came back to the planning department, had a number of conversations about what kind of density transitions, residential density transitions make sense, kind of per the City of Surprise recommendations, what kind of commercial nodes and where would they be located would make sense, and really talked about an additional step at the City of Surprise, or what would likely be a pre-annexation development agreement to provide those services ahead of annexation. So development could occur timely without an annexed piece of property. And again, the challenge here is we are a couple, at least a mile away from the border of City of Surprise, so we couldn't initiate an annexation today. So worked with their staff, their mayor. In the packet, and we'll show today, is we have a letter from not only the mayor, not only the water services director, not only the planning director, all supporting specific functions that they would commit to providing. I think a lot of those changes really answered a lot of questions for planning staff. We presented this to the Board of Supervisors. The Board of Supervisors said, well, hey, this is a completely different application. Can you go back to the commission and present this back to the commission? So that's why we're kind of here in a unique situation, in a remand type of situation, because it is a different case. And it's a different case with a lot of questions answered, and happy to have staff support and the local jurisdiction. And keep in mind, it is just a CPA. This doesn't guarantee zoning. This doesn't guarantee sewer and water. It doesn't guarantee anything other than provide some minimum requirements for open space and density transitions and some maximum density caps. I will give you a little bit of overview if you go to the next slide. What this shows you is the area. So the property in question is kind of in the top left corner. It's 1,000 acres, as you can see. It does have residential and commercial components mixed in. Access to the property will be twofold. There's an existing state land easement that connects to basically Carefree Highway or Highway 74. So we'll have freeway access on the north. There are connection points as well, and then future connection points to Grand Avenue as well. So we're basically sandwiched in between two quasi freeways from an access standpoint. Probably the biggest change that I did not reiterate the last time I was here in November is really the large yellow blob on the map that you see, which is the BNSF property. In March of last year, after you guys heard this case, BNSF purchased 3,500 acres of state land property to do a large terminal for logistics services. As we know, if you recall, maybe a year ago, we were all wondering when all of the ships in Long Beach are going to dock and those products are going to reach middle America. There were a lot of issues with logistics, transportation. All of the transportation leaders in the country then took a look at, well, how can we prevent that from happening again? BNSF moved forward with the acquisition of 3,500 acres. It's not adjacent to us, but you can see how the roadway network could connect directly to that property. Reports early on was that this property could have a minimum of 6,000 jobs. Now, again, the green blob next to it is the old Grand Vista Zone master plan community, purchased for its existing proving ground use and has continued to be used for autonomous vehicle proving grounds. And so you have potential expansion there and large employment uses. So with the question of, is this residential master plan community too quick for its time, I would point to the properties next door and say, these two employment uses, if at full capacity, will have a residential employment demand in the area that will far exceed any of the other master plan communities that are successful in the area. If you look at Vistancia, you look at Verado, you look at Belmont, all of those, at least the ones that are built, are substantially successful top 20 master plan communities around the world. None of them were entitled or started with a large employment node right next door. This employment node is purchased, it's underway, it's planned, it's going to have a large need for employment housing. And if you don't approve housing in the area, what you have is traffic coming outside of the area to get to these employment uses. So from a traffic standpoint, even though we are sandwiched between two freeways, if you have an employer that's literally either connected or a quarter mile away, there's not a better compatible use for those employees. So we can go through a couple slides, Mr. Chairman. I know there's a couple folks who might want to speak today, but again, We went through a pretty substantial outreach with a neighborhood meeting last year. We also filed a few cases recently that are in the area where we had another neighborhood meeting, and you will hear concerns about water. You'll hear concerns about regional traffic in the area. I think traffic, as I indicated, will have access off of almost 2 freeways, quasi-freeways. I don't think you can say the same thing for the 9,000-acre Verado has access on I-10 and then Jackrabbit, which is an arterial. You look at the Estancia does have close access to a freeway. This has better access. It has an employment node near it. The water issue is a big issue. We hear about it in the news every single day in a drought. This general plan or this comp plan amendment in front of you does not guarantee water. It does not take water from any other sources in the area. Any of the county residents that have exempt wells in the area, we will have to prove up our own water. The benefit of designing a master plan community with a partner like City of Surprise is that we will work to be within their system. The City of Surprise will provide a water system for this property and other properties in the area, which is different than a standalone master plan community that would have to rely on on-site wells or adjacent wells. And so from a water use standpoint and a sewer standpoint, being connected to a city services is the best way to plan an area of growth that's this far out, because you have city services that can take advantage of the city's water system, perhaps extra capacity in their system, and or the water credits that are generated by the sewer credits. So if you join CAGRA, the Central Arizona Groundwater Group, you get credits for all of the sewer that goes back to which are water credits. And so being involved in a system is the very best way to preserve and utilize water in Arizona. Having exempt wells and or on-site wells only is not the best way. And so we wanted to make sure that the City of Surprise was happy with our plan and that they were committed to it before we move forward to this hearing today. But with that, Mr. Vice Chair, members, be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Bill. I guess before I go to the commission, first I'd like to thank you and the applicant for all your efforts since our November meeting and working with staff and Board of Supervisors in the community and whoever else you worked with. One question I have, you mentioned BNSF, that stands, is that Burlington Northern
Railroad system.
Santa Fe Railroad?
Like that, yeah.
And I apologize, you may have said this, but with that many acres, you said 3,500 acres. How many employees? I remember reading the article on that, but I don't remember the amount of employees.
Correct, Mr. Vice Chairman. So they have an additional acreage that they've owned for a long time, went through a general plan amendment in the City of Surprise many years ago for a smaller logistics terminal, so to speak. The addition of the 3,500 acres, the low end, as Business Journal reported, probably a year ago, would be 6,000 employees. And keep in mind, our development, Santa Barbara Ranch, has a cap of 5,000 homes. So theoretically, if we built every single house tomorrow, we wouldn't even be able to provide all of the housing needs for one employment user in the area.
Okay, thank you. I guess my last comments, and I know Commissioner Swart has to leave by noon. We've got some time here, but we'll keep moving along. I live in the city of Buckeye, and this, if I would have been, I wasn't at the November meeting here, but I would have been in favor of it then. And then in the case of BNSF now being approved, it just makes it more of a good long-term planning project. The names that come to mind, master plans that everybody's probably read about recently, is Douglas Ranch and Belmont. And I think Verado, the community I live in, they all did the same thing to start with. They were all in the county. And they started the process there. And then the city of Buckeye eventually annexed all of those master plans communities, tens of thousands of acres. And Buckeye now, I think, is even larger in square miles than even the city of Phoenix. So I think this makes good long-term planning sense. And I'm going to be in favor of it. So just want to let you know that. Is there anybody else from the commission that has any comments or questions of the applicant? Hearing none. Is there anybody from the public that wishes to speak? Seeing none.
No, there is, sorry.
David?
Cheryl Hamlin would like to speak. She should be available now.
Okay, are
Yes,
you
I
on-
just unmuted my computer. Can you hear me?
Okay, yes. Can you please
Great.
state your name and address for the record?
I'm Cheryl Hamlin. I live at 725 West Hermosa in the lovely, well-maintained city of Wickenburg. And I'd like to talk about wastewater today. The applicant, I understand, has been talking to the city of Surprise about infrastructure issues, but there's absolutely no detail in the new submission. There was a schematic provided in the first submittal showing potable water emanating from Surprise and the effluent coming back on the same trajectory to the Surprise wastewater. However, Surprise did say they do not have enough wastewater capability. So I suggest that there will be another plant necessary. What Wickenburg did with the Wickenburg Ranch, I think, is an interesting model. They required the developer to pay for and install a smaller plant in just for Wickenburg Ranch, and it's cost about $7 million, servicing about 1,750 homes. Now, if you extrapolate from that, 5,000 homes is going to cost $20 million. So my question is, who's going to pay for this? This isn't an HOA. Will all the citizens of Surprise pay for this? Will you float a bond and then have everybody pay on it for the taxes for all these years? Furthermore, where do you place this plant so that the conditions for the effluent disposal are taken in consideration? And now sludge, of course, is a big issue because there are a lot more restrictions to it. In the old days, you could truck it away when diesel fuel was $2 a gallon. That's not really a great idea now. It's going to cost a fortune. So we need to look at some new technologies. Furthermore, if you want to do something besides landscaping with this effluent, then you need to build an advanced water treatment facility for another $20 million. That's not impossible. It's done. There are around town in the county. However, then you have the issue of brine disposal, which is much more tricky than sludge. It can be done, but it's expensive. Then both of these plants that I'm suggesting could add up to $40 to $50 million. Again, who's going to pay for this? They're also extremely intensive energy usage, so that needs to be studied. This plan was so light on details, it's hard for me to imagine that the Planning Commission could approve this. I suggest the applicant go away and study some more about these issues that I've just raised, give the Planning Commission enough detail to approve it, and for the citizens of Surprise to know how much it's going to cost them. Because right now, it's just an idea. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Would the applicant like to respond to Ms. Hamlin's comments?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. So I had staff put an exhibit up. I tried to be brief today because, again, we are at the comprehensive plan amendment stage. This is not a zoning case. This is not a approval of infrastructure improvements. This is the very first step for regional planning. But the exhibit on the screen does depict, which I think Cheryl referenced, an exhibit that has been part of the package from day one, which it's aptly named Development Agreement Exhibit. So this is an exhibit that will be attached to a development agreement with the City of Surprise that they have reviewed and that they have based their letters of support on. So Cheryl's correct. If you look at Santa Barbara Ranch on this exhibit, which is the most northern site, if you follow the lines as they track south through Broadstone Ranch, Rancho Maria, Walden Ranch, and then down to the very small bottom corner is a large piece of property that's owned by the City of Surprise, which is their future wastewater treatment plant location. They already have the property located. They already have the property purchased. It is surrounded by state land, so they can be expanded. This plant will be the future sites of the new wastewater treatment plant, potentially as well. A water treatment plant as well will go here. And I think she is correct. It is probably in the $30 to $50 million range to build both facilities. As you can see, the number of acres and properties that we've included in this future project will all be paying. The City of Surprise or the citizens of Surprise won't be writing a check for these treatment plants. This is exactly how Verrado got started. This is exactly how Estancia got started. The developer comes in, works with the municipality, does the proper planning, gets the state permits for these things, and then funds it themselves through a number of things, either CFDs or bonds or private funding. And then others who tap into that system will pay those developers back. So that's the high level plan for sewer and water that we've been working for a better part of a year with the city on. Again, today is the comprehensive plan amendment. This is about a land use change from one color to another. Thank you.
All right, thank you. David, is there anyone else on webinar wishing to speak?
We're not aware of anyone else.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'm going to close the public forum. Is there further discussion from the commission? Any questions of the applicant or staff?
This is Commissioner Hernandez. I just want to thank you, Mr. Talley. That was a great presentation. And I just kind of want to echo everything that Vice Chair Slosher said. I think this is the first step for approval. And I think that I'm all for this project. And I think it's a good use of the planning. And like Mr. Talley said, this is just a major plan amendment at this point. So I'm in favor of it.
All right, thank you. Anybody else from the commission? Hearing none, could I have a motion, please?
This is Commissioner Hernandez.
Commissioner Hernandez?
I motion to approve CPA 2021-009 as presented by staff.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion to approve from Commissioner Hernandez, a second from Commissioner Swart. We have a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner McGee,
Yes.
Commissioner Swart,
Yes.
Commissioner Arnett,
Yes.
Commissioner Hernandez,
Yes.
Vice Chair Schlosser,
Yes.
Chairman Lindblom.
Yes.
Chairman, that's an approval by a vote of 6-0.
All right, thank you very much, everyone. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to the last regular agenda item, numbers were messed up, but KC 2021-133 Val Vista 1. Staff like to present, please.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman and members of the board. Case Z2021-133 is for the Brenlen LLC property in Supervisor District 1. The site is located at 12825 South Val Vista Drive, which is approximately 1,500 feet south of the southeast corner of Warner Road and Val Vista Drive in the Gilbert area. The site is currently zoned rural 43 and is approximately 1 acre in size. The request includes a rezone from rural 43 to C2 CUPD overlay. In addition to the change in zone, the proposal also requests the following development standards. Minimum distance between a billboard and rural residential zone boundary of 100 feet, but not to include zoning within street, right-of-way, or any open space that is zoned rural or residential, but is only being used for a golf course. Additionally, minimum distance between illuminated billboard and a rural residential zone boundary of 150 feet, but not to include zoning within street, right-of-way, or any open space that is zoned rural or residential, but is only being used for a golf course. The request also includes a waiver for site enclosure and screening for billboard. Further, the following C2 uses will be prohibited with this request: adult-oriented facilities, bars, liquor stores, recreation centers with pool halls or billiards, theaters, and RV and boat storage facility. The request would accomplish the following: rezone the property to C2 and vary development standards for billboards, as well as prohibit certain uses allowed in the C2 zone and allow the development of an illuminated billboard. The site appears appropriate for commercial development, fronting an arterial adjacent to a railroad and between existing industrial zoning to the south and commercial zoning to the north. The applicant complied with public participation requirements, and the town of Gilbert has submitted opposition to the request, stating that the town does not support billboards within their municipal planning area. To help lessen the potential impacts of illumination of the billboard, the applicant has agreed to time of use for illumination of the billboard, with top-down illumination being extinguished between 11 p.m. and dusk. Staff recommends the commission adopt a motion recommending that the Board of Supervisors approve Z 2021133, subject to the following conditions, A through N. At this time, I will be happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you for the presentation. Any questions of staff from the commission?
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner McGee. Just a quick question of staff.
Please.
Were the efforts to mitigate the lighting, does that still leave the town of Gilbert in opposition to this request?
That is correct.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner McGee. Anybody else from the commission that has questions of staff? Hearing none, are there any members of the public that wish to speak?
Good morning, Mr. Vice Chair. Gary Hayes on behalf of the applicant.
Can you please state your address as well?
2198 East Camelback Road in Phoenix.
All right, thank you.
First of all, I'd like to thank staff for working with us, as they always do, to try and get to a resolution where we have a motion of approval in front of you today. I have a presentation, but due to some time constraints, I know of some of the board, I won't need to make it. I would like to just quickly address Commissioner Brophy McGee's question about the town of Gilbert. The town of Gilbert's opposition is about a billboard, because the town of Gilbert doesn't allow billboards inside the town. They used to, because there are some there. They're legal non-conforming now. But this is in Maricopa County where billboards are allowed. And that's why your staff has recommended approval on this case. As it relates to some of the things about the mitigation, we wanted to make sure that we were trying to do everything we could possibly do to try and alleviate any concerns anyone might have. That's why we agreed to limit the lights. That's why we agreed to do some of the stuff that we've done. But as it relates to the town of Gilbert, it's just because they don't like billboards, but that's fine. They don't allow them in their jurisdiction, but this isn't their jurisdiction. I'm available if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody from the commission have any questions?
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner McGee.
Please, go ahead.
Thank you for your presentation, sir. I wanted to just check when you said that you did the mitigation, with whom in the town of Gilbert were you dealing? You said they agreed, or we agreed. We agreed with whom, please?
Sure, through the Vice Chairman, Commissioner Brophy McGee, those discussions where the mitigation were with your staff. So we worked with your staff to come up with some of the stipulations. As it relates to the town of Gilbert, I have personally met with council members. I've met with the manager. I know your staff has met with planning staff from the town of Gilbert. This letter was written back in January. We haven't heard anything about this case in a while. There's been some other issues they've brought up, but nothing about this specific one that I know of since January.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, Vice Chair Sasha, this is Commissioner Chairman Lindblom. It's probably in the packet, but for the applicant, what is the height on this particular sign?
Through the Vice Chairman, be 40 feet. Oh, I'm sorry, 30 feet. Sorry, I misread the hand signals from the back of the room.
30 feet.
And
Thank you. Thank you.
To make a point of clarification, I believe that's the same height that is allowed in Gilbert residential uses.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none, is there anybody else from the public that wishes to speak on this case? Seeing none. David, is there anybody on webinar that's raised their hand that wishes to speak?
We are not aware of anyone who wishes to speak online.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'm going to close the public forum. Is there any further discussion from the commission?
This is Chairman Lindblom. I'm very familiar with this site. It's a mile or two from my house, but when I was young, we actually ran a hay barn just next door. So the location up against the railroad across from the golf course doesn't doesn't concern me. I think there's some concerns, and I can see from Gilbert on some illumination issues. That's why I asked the height. If it's super high and, you know, visible by a lot, like that could be an issue. But I think with the timing of shutdown and the height, 30 feet, I'm probably more inclined to be in line with this site and along Val Vista in that area. You know, when I think of these kind of things, it's, will this stand out? Will it look, will it, you know, diminish the values? And I'm not coming to a yes on those questions. And those are kind of the things I think about. So that's just kind of my general comments on this issue.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else from the commission? Hearing none, can I have a motion, please?
This is Commissioner Hernandez. I vote to approve case Z 2021-133 as presented by staff.
All right, I have a motion to approve from Commissioner Hernandez. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
I'll second that.
I don't know who spoke. Commissioner Swart?
I think that was Arnett.
Yeah, I did as well. Either way.
Go ahead, Art. We'll give it to Commissioner Arnett.
Hey, I have a
There you go.
motion to approve from Commissioner Hernandez, a second from Commissioner Arnett. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner McGee,
I will pass for the moment.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Yes.
Commissioner Arnett, Commissioner Arnett,
Yes.
Commissioner Hernandez,
Yes.
Vice Chair Slasher,
Yes.
Chairman Limblom.
Yes.
And Commissioner McGee.
No.
Chairman, that's an approval by a vote of 5-1.
Okay, thank you. Motion is approved. Are there any other matters? Aaron? Or Rachel?
Mr. Chairman, we have no announcements for now.
All right. Well, we got Commissioner Swart out of here almost 2 hours before he had to go. So we're good. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.